What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and today we're going to be talking about 151. I know up there I have in big bold letters reprint, but I'm going to be honest with you, I feel very strongly that this is just a simple restock of 151. And there's a couple reasons that I think that, and first and foremost, just so everybody knows, like, I do not own a local card shop. I have no affiliations with any distributors, so when I get this information, I have to get it from other people who do, and thankfully there's a lot of fantastic content creators here on YouTube who share their journey with us. And what I have been hearing is that in order to get this 151 product, what I'm hearing is that it's going to be tins and it's also going to be the booster bundles. And in order to get it, you have to actually buy some other product along with it. So it is not uncommon for distributors to take a high velocity, highly popular product like 151 and to hook it to some low velocity, less popular products, because that's pretty much the only way the distributors think they can get it out of their inventory. So they're hooking 151 to some other products. Matter of fact, Danny Phantom jokes, and he's told a story before about how he has, a warehouse full of Battle Academy boxes because they hooked it to some product back in the day. Now, I would not be a huge fan of it if I was a local card shop, but I totally get it from a distribution standpoint. You got to find a way to move slow-moving product, and that seems to be what they're doing right here. Now, just because this isn't a reprint doesn't mean that I'm not going to talk about the impact that reprints are going to have on the Scarlet and Violet era as a whole. And I think the impact is going to be magnified in Scarlet and Violet compared to Sword and Shield. And I'm going to go through a lot of the reasons why. I'm going to show you a lot of numbers, a lot of facts, a lot of data to back up why I think that the reprint cycle is going to be really, really impactful here. And I think it's going to have an outsized impact on the value of the cards and the value of the sealed product, or at least it could. We're going to talk about two different sides of the coin. There could be a reprint cycle that has little impact. There could be a reprint cycle that has a huge impact. And believe it or not, it doesn't have a lot to do with the size of the reprint. It's going to come down to the quality of the reprint. So before we get into all of that, I just kind of want to frame up what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the when. This is going to launch in Q4 of 2024. That's no surprise. We've been talking about that a ton on this channel. We basically said the Pokemon Company would be insane if they didn't reprint or restock 151 ahead of the holidays. This is obviously the big hitter thus far from the Scarlet Violet era. So of course, doing this around the holiday season, people are going to be buying it like crazy. Like, great shot in the arm from a revenue perspective for the Pokemon Company. Makes all the sense in the world. As I said, it sounds like it's just going to be the tins and booster bundles, so I am of course going to be doing a deep dive into some other products and talking about what impact that might have. And the biggest thing we're going to talk about on this video is print quality. We're going to talk about print quality now, what print quality could talk about in the future, what impact that might have on the prices as a whole. And that is kind of like the whole, I don't know, that's the whole hypothesis around my theory that the impact of these reprints, when they eventually come, are going to have an outsized, kind of movement on the prices here in the Scarlet and Violet era. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, before we get into the datas and the graphs and the charts, I got to plant this seed early in your head. If you get into this video, you find value in it and you really enjoy it and you want some more, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and if you have comments, drop them down below. We got a small channel here. Those three things go a long way in helping us out, and I really appreciate it. So listen, let's get into some of this really cool stuff that's been going on in the Scarlet and Violet era. So here is what I have on this very first slide. Okay, these are all of the sets that came out in the Scarlet and Violet block in 2023, and I did that on purpose. There's a couple different reasons. First off, 2023 gives us a large enough sample size. Enough of these cards have been sent through to PSA for us to understand, kind of what the print quality is and what we're looking at here. So each one of these are the sets from 2023, and in the blue box I have to the right, you will see a total and you will see a Gem Mint 10 column. Now, the total is the total number of cards from each of these sets that was submitted to PSA for grading. Then the Gem Mint 10 column tells you how many of those cards were awarded a Gem Mint 10 grade, and that can be anything. It can be commons, it can be illustration rares, special illustration rares, all of them, the totality of it, the total number of cards that were submitted, that is how many cards received a Gem Mint 10 grade. So what we do with that is we go ahead and come up with a Gem Mint 10 rate by the different sets, and that's really impactful because this doesn't always hold true. There are special cards, there are special sets that can blow through high populations, that that can blow through high gem rates because they're in such high demand, it just doesn't matter. They command really high prices. But what we typically see is that when you have a low gem rate, when you have, these cards that are much harder to get in a PSA 10 holder, both the singles cards and the 10s tend to command a higher premium. The singles cards have a higher value because everybody's trying to chase those really elusive PSA 10s. They're on eBay, they're searching for perfectly centered cards, they're scanning the backs, making sure they look really good, and they're willing to pay a little bit of a premium because they know that if they get those cards and they're able to flip them into PSA 10 holders, then guess what? Those PSA 10s are really rare and they hold a really high value. So traditionally, we do see that lower gem mint rates have a tendency to have higher prices, not only now, but also command really high prices far into the future. That's where we always talk about the supply and demand side of things. So that is what we're going to really focus on, and that is what we're going to talk about a whole lot on the upcoming slides. So I went ahead and put it into a more digestible format for us to look at, okay? And so up on the very top there, you have the 5 first sets from Scarlet and Violet, and then down on the bottom, you have the 5 first sets from Sword and Shield. And you can see that you have the one column in blue on the left, that is the number of PSA 10s that were awarded. The other column in blue to the right is the total number of cards that were submitted to PSA for grading. And then in the green on the far right, you will see the Gem Mint 10 rate over there. Now, start off with Scarlet and Violet base, and you see it was at a 42% gem rate. Now, if you didn't have any type of outside information, you would have no idea of if that is good or if that is bad or how that stacks up against other sets in the past. So down below, you can see the base set for Scarlet and Violet had about a 42% gem rate, and the base set for Sword and Shield had a 67% gem rate. That is a huge delta between those two different numbers. And then as you continue to go down, the gem rates actually get worse for the next two sets, right? Paldea Evolved dropped to a 39.7, or we'll call it a 40% gem rate. And then Obsidian Flames just was absolutely awful from a gem rate perspective, down at 34.4%. And when you compare them to the two sets from Sword and Shield, you got Rebel Clash, which was up at a 66%, and then Darkness Ablaze over 70% at a 71.4% gem rate, right? Then we get into 151, and 151 was better than Obsidian, what was really flat or comparatively flat to Paldea Evolved and Scarlet and Violet base, coming in at a 40% gem rate. That's really important for 151 to understand. That is a 40% gem rate set. Like, I don't know about you, but I have pulled so many awesome cards for 151, but I can't send them in. Print lines were absolutely terrible, running north and south on the card, and so frustrating. But the lower gem rate has driven a ton of interest in the singles cards, and we see so much of those cards retaining so much of their original value because they are so hard to get in really high grade. Then you get into Champion's Path and Vivid Voltage down there from the Sword and Shield era, and you'll see it's 67%. And then Vivid Voltage actually is pretty much, not pretty much, but it is much lower than all of the other Sword and Shield sets, coming in at 57%. But the difference between Vivid Voltage, where you see the drop in gem rate between Champion's Path, Darkness Ablaze, Rebel Clash, it drops significantly to Vivid Voltage. Paradox is higher compared to 151, Obsidian, and Paldea Evolved, right? Paradox Rift is all the way up at 52%, and I did a recent video where we looked at the Greninja versus the Umbreon card versus the Moonbreon card, right? And we saw the Greninja's gem rate right out of the gate is at 68%. So I'm telling you right now, the print quality moving forward in Scarlet and Violet, it seems to be much better. They seem to have figured it out. So what I'm really talking about here is the big difference between Scarlet and Violet sets, at least in the very beginning, versus the Sword and Shield sets in the beginning and their overall gem rate. And what I want to understand moving forward is the print quality going to improve with reprints? Because I think that is going to give us a whole lot of insight as to what is going to happen with the value of these cards moving forward. When I think about the Paldea Evolved Magikarp, right? That card, first off, I think it's just a stunning card to begin with, but would it be $100, $110, $120 raw card if it wasn't for the fact that those PSA 10s were so hard to get that they're going for like $700 on eBay right now? Probably not. Of course it wouldn't be worth that much. So the fact that that card is visually stunning to begin with, the fact that it's really hard to get in a Gem Mint 10, and the fact that it's just so hard to find in general out there, like, that is driving the price. And you can make the same argument for the Tyranitar and the Raichu, right? And then you think about 151, this really, really awesome set, the really, really important set to the Scarlet and Violet era. Like, the fact that the gem rate is so incredibly low, I think is going to help those cards retain value in the long run. And that is why I'm so interested for all of these reprints that we're going to have some point in the future. Now, I was just talking about singles cards, and I thought it would be really important for us to highlight these cards from the earlier part of Scarlet and Violet and talk about the ones that I think, I won't call them at risk, but I do think they're cards that if there is a second print run, or when there is a second print run, I do think most of these will end up getting some type of reprint or restock. If there is another print run, and if the gem rate goes up significantly, I think it will have an impact on the value of the cards. Now, we don't know when those will come, and we don't know if the print rate will be better. We don't know if it will improve, but it's something to keep an eye on. Now, you look at the Magikarp, which I already talked about. It has a 23% gem rate. That is absolutely out of this world low for a chase card like that. And then you get to the Tyranitar and the Raichu, right? Both of those from Paldea Evolved. Both of those have really, really strong raw card prices on them. And the Tyranitar is an 18% gem rate. There's only 259 of those in PSA 10s out there, and that set is over a year old. That is just hard to imagine. It's unfathomable, right? Then you get the Raichu card right there, another one. Only 267 exist in the world in a PSA 10 holder right now. Now you're getting into 151, which is what we're talking about on this video. Relatively high populations because it was such a popular set, and I certainly don't think the initial print one was relatively small. I think they printed a good number of it. You can still find, 151 ultra premium collections at Costco, right? And we've seen there's been 151 elite trainer boxes at Costco, so we're seeing a lot of it still in the market. But when you look at the gem rates over there, okay, the Charizard, the chase card, right, that's got a 38.8% gem rate. That is so incredibly low, especially when you look at other sets. Remember, not long ago, we looked at all of the chase alt art cards from Sword and Shield. The lowest chase alt art card that we had, that was the Giratina from Lost Origin, and that was at a 48% gem rate. Outside of that one card, that was the statistical anomaly. All of the other ones were in the mid to high 60s, and some of them, like the Moonbreon has a 72% gem rate. So when you think about that compared to these cards out of the beginning of the Scarlet and Violet era, you can't even compare them. I mean, the delta between the gem rates of those alt arts and these first cards out of Scarlet and Violet is just absolutely insane. So the Charizard from 151, I will say, relatively high population, almost 7,200 in PSA 10. Over 18,000 have been sent in to get graded. Obviously, with these new sets, or the new cards coming out and these tins and booster bundles, I think we're going to have more. But I do feel like the downside is relatively protected because the gem rate is so low. And then, of course, I had to include the Charizard from Obsidian Flames only because we talked about that was the lowest gem rate out of all of the Scarlet and Violet sets, probably that we will have in its entirety, unless some of these new sets have really bad print quality. But that Charizard, again, a 29% gem rate on that one. Only 4,000 of those exist in a PSA 10 holder. There have been over 14,000 sent in for grading, and only 4,000 have gotten a gem mint 10. Just a crazy low number. And again, I do think, even though Obsidian Flames isn't a huge set, even though not a lot of people aren't in love with it right now, I think that low population is going to help that card see some future returns long into the future. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about too was the fact that, at least for this restock, we're not seeing any of these Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs come back into stock. We at least haven't heard of it. And I'm telling you right now, if we go through a reprint cycle where we do not see these Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes coming back into stock, they are going to be so incredibly valuable far into the future. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if they're going to restock them or not. I think it'd be silly if they didn't. Matter of fact, I actually kind of hope they do, because I would love for everybody to have the opportunity to have some of these. I hope they don't print them into oblivion, but I wouldn't be opposed to a small restock of these. But if we get through into this, if we get into year, I don't know, 2, and they haven't reprinted this yet, it is going to be fascinating to see what happens to these in the long run. Now remember, when we're talking about these Elite Trainer boxes versus the regular ones, the Pokemon Center exclusive ones do have the stamped promo in there. I don't know if that is different enough to kind of make it harder for them to reprint in the future. I don't know what goes into printing a promo with a stamp on it, to be honest with you, but it is something to keep in mind as we're trying to see how these different reprint, restock cycles happen further into the future. So, with all that being said, this is kind of how I'm summarizing this restock for 151. I think the quality is going to be the same, so I think 151 is still going to be where it's at. Again, unless this is a reprint, and unless during the reprint, which I don't think it is, they have fundamentally changed the way they print the cards, I think the quality is going to be the same, and I think 151, at least for now, is still sitting very pretty. But if there is a better print quality, listen, it still has a bright future. 151 is still a fantastic set with fantastic cards, and it's just a lineup for the ages. So even if there's a better print quality, I still think everything's going to be fine as long as they don't do what they did to Japanese 151, where they just absolutely put it in a meat grinder and print it into oblivion. You can still get Japanese 151 on the Japanese Pokemon Center as far as I know. So, I mean, they've just overdone Japanese 151 to the nth degree. Now, the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, as I said, you know, if there's a small reprint at some point and it sells out relatively quickly within the first, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 days, I'm totally fine with that. Like I said earlier, I want everybody to have an opportunity to own some of these awesome products, so I would be fine with that. However, if they do a big reprint and it ends up staying on the Pokemon Center for, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe a month, something like that, then I would have a little pause for concern. Not that it won't age well, but I just think it would be much longer until it ends up hitting that full steam and really starting to gain traction in the long run. But then if it's never reprinted, listen, you're going to see PikaPikaPaPa do a happy dance, because I absolutely think those products will go through the roof. I think if they were to reprint any of the Pokemon Center exclusively trainer boxes, I think 151 would be the one to reprint. So if they never end up reprinting this, then oh my goodness golly almighty, I will go double down, if it's possible to double down any more than I already am, on those Pokemon Center exclusively trainer boxes. So I hope you guys took some more value out of this versus just talking about a reprint or a restock and what it's going to do to the market and how it's going to add more cards into it. Like, I think we can learn so much from this first reprint cycle when we go through Scarlet and Violet. I'm excited for it to come out. I'm excited for us to have more opportunities to get amazing cards and to add them to our collection. And if you're as excited as I am and you had a ton of fun during this video, you know what to do. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, go ahead and hit it. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And if you enjoyed it, give us a big old thumbs up. I hope you have an awesome one. I appreciate you more than I can say. I'll talk to you later. See you, everybody. Bye.